Hello there again, everyone. I finally got the camera up and working. I know this isn't a fancy Canon or anything, but it's gonna do for now until hopefully the channel gets a little bit bigger and I can actually afford something better than this. I was trying to figure out, now that I have my new camera, what kind of video should I make? How about another somewhat controversial one? My little sister introduced me to the show Catfish a couple of years ago, and although she enjoyed the program, the same question popped up in her mind every time she watched a new episode. How can someone let themselves get catfished? How can people be so gullible? How can people allow themselves to open their hearts to someone they don't know and let them in the way people do on that show? And for those of you who have not seen the show for whatever reason, Catfish is basically an MTV program, a reality series where two guys get emails from people who say that they're in a serious relationship, sometimes are even engaged to someone that they only know through the internet. They've never actually met them in person, and something about the partner is rubbing them the wrong way and leading the person to believe that they might not be who they say they are. So these guys take the person who sent the email to go and meet their partner to hopefully find out that they are who they said they were, and that, circumstances beyond their control were just preventing them from meeting them. But more often than not, the person was a liar. I understand by the way the show is formatted why some people are so confused as to how someone can allow themselves to get put into a position like this. But honestly, I believe in most cases, the guys on Catfish, Neve and Max, are with the person who wrote to the show for about 3 days, and they communicate with them at all hours of the day and night. But you only see about an hour's worth of those 3 days, and it's only the most sensational minutes of the episode that get aired. They're not going to show you every single bit of it because it would go on too long. Now, the best way that I can think to explain to you how someone can get catfished so easily and so severely is by walking you through a time I got catfished by two people at once, and hopefully that will shed some light on why it's so easy for people to prey on other people on the internet this way. We have to backtrack a little bit. I met the two people who were catfishing me when I was in my first or second year of college, and for anyone outside America, I mean uni. And I was in my early 20s, and in high school I had been severely bullied to the point where I missed a lot of class because I was on suicide watch, and I missed a lot of class because I was constantly being dragged to the counselor's office for trying to bust my head through windows. It was pretty bad. I ate lunch in the janitor's closet, and I had a couple people who associated themselves with me but didn't really stay in my life that much, and maybe one real friend the whole time, so it was rough. And on top of being bullied that severely and basically having no friends, I led a very sheltered life. My mother was the type who believed that if you went on the internet for anything other than homework, you were probably going to end up dead in some guy's basement or something really severe and crazy like that, even though that's like a large even though that kind of thing happens to a strong minority of people online. She wouldn't let us in chat rooms, she wouldn't let us on MySpace, she wouldn't let us anywhere that we could talk to someone else. If we wanted to talk to someone, we had to either be friends with them through school or know them, in real life and call them up on the phone or something. So in college, I'm in a new place. I don't know anybody now, but I'm like, hey, maybe this is time for a fresh start. I was starting to hit the tail end of my depression and I was starting to feel better. And I thought, well, I'm not really sure though how to meet people. I'd been so damaged when I was growing up that I didn't really understand how to conduct myself around other people, so I didn't understand how to go about meeting them. I had a couple people who would talk to me in classes and they were really nice and everything, but we didn't really do that much outside our classes. And during one of my breaks in between class, one of my old friends from middle school messaged me, hey, do you have a Facebook account? And I was like, no, what's that? And she was like, it's kind of like MySpace, but everyone's going here instead now for whatever reason. So do you want to chat there? And I was like, well, my mother doesn't really want me doing stuff like that. And at that point, I got the lecture of you're an adult now and you can make your own decisions. So I decided, okay, I'll give this a try. I'll make a Facebook account. And if I don't like it, I'll just take it down. No big deal. Problem. As I said, I was extremely sheltered when I was growing up, and I spent most of my young adult and teen life in therapy or under some kind of hospitalization because I was not mentally okay at all. I've lost memories of most of my life back then. That's how bad it was. So I could be easily fooled. I was more trusting than most people are. I was still technically a mentally ill person, and I was an extremely innocent person because I'd never had a chance to meet anybody terribly dishonest. I wasn't given a chance to make mistakes before. So I make a Facebook account, and a bunch of people I'd known from school started adding me, and I added them, and I would see people pop up in my add friends list who seemed kind of interesting. And I'd ask my friends if they knew them. Sometimes they were mutual, sometimes they weren't. And I would just add the people because they happened to know my friends. So I thought it would be okay because, let's face it, back in school, you knew a lot of people that were like mutual friends with your friends and stuff. That's just how you met people. I thought it worked the same way online, and how wrong I was. It turned out, and I didn't find this out until well after the catfishing happened, they never actually met these people at all. They were friends with them on Facebook for the same reason they caught my attention. They looked interesting and they had no idea who they were. I'm gonna call the three people involved in the catfishing story Anna, Roy, and Bev. Bev was older, like not that old, she was like 30, but to someone who's like in their very, very early 20s, that's a very mature adult with a job and stuff. And I started talking to her first, and I was getting on with her really, really well. And I started showing her some of my art. And she was like, wow, that's really good. You should consider making a DeviantArt account. And I was, again, like, ooh, what's that? That's so cool. And she kind of showed me the ropes with DeviantArt. And I started posting my art there, and I didn't really have any issues. Everything was pretty cool there. And one person, Roy, was repeatedly commenting on my stuff and being really, really nice. And when I started looking at their gallery, I noticed we had a lot of similar interests, which I found really cool. And I noticed I haven't done a lot of activity on DeviantArt in a long time, so you'll have to forgive me if I don't remember exactly what things are called, but there's some kind of messaging, private messaging thing. I think it's called Notes or something like that. And Roy started messaging me there, and we were getting on pretty well. And bing, there goes the crush. Because I again, was so damaged in high school I didn't really have a chance to date or anything, so I fell into that having a crush on people thing pretty late. And we were talking a lot, and I introduced Roy to Bev, and Bev was like, wow, this person's really cool. And somehow, by the way I talked about Roy, Bev got the impression that I liked Roy, and she decided that we should probably try something. And I was like, well, how can we date if we're really far away? And she was like, it is possible now because of the internet. Just be together a lot online, talk to each other like you would if you were in person, make sure that you're, video calling each other on Skype or something all the time. And she did introduce me to Skype. And when you're able to meet up, you'll meet up. And I was like, cool, that works for me. I asked Roy about it, and Roy seemed fine with it, so we started an online relationship. I did a lot, like at least twice a week Skype calls with Roy, where I met Roy and their parents and everything, and there was nothing that seemed fishy about it. Everything was fantastic. And maybe a few months into the relationship, we met Anna and her friend Pat. And Anna was around my age, and she'd also been through a lot of trauma after mental illness and the way people treated her when they found out about it and everything. So we bonded pretty quick. So all of us are this big group of online friends, and everything's going great. And I would message with Anna and Pat a lot at the same time, and this friendship got deep enough that we would be awake until like 7 in the morning talking to each other, only sleep for a few hours and go right back to it. It was one of those things. But there was something really strange, and one day I private messaged Anna, Bev, and Roy, and I was like, I really like Pat a lot. He's a really good friend, and he's been there a lot for me, but I don't understand how come every time I try to video call with him, he promises me he will, and then he doesn't do it. He backs out of it, and it was always for really strange reasons. And they were like, I don't know, maybe he's just shy or something. Why don't you ask him? So I go to Pat and I'm like, can I ask you why I'm never able to video chat with you? And his response was, ask Anna about it. Back around the circle I go, back to Anna again. And I'm like, okay, Anna, he said to talk to you. How come he never video chats with me? And she said, this is where things started getting a little weird for me. She said, Pat doesn't like to video chat with people because it reminds him of a really traumatizing point in his life. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry about that. Do you mind if I ask what that was? She said, when Pat was in high school, he came out as LGBT. I believe he came out as bi, and he was currently involved with a boy. And when he told his parents, his mother was fine with it, and she was very supportive, but his father was really, really pissed off. Nothing strange there. That happens a lot. She said that his father had started beating him one day when his mother was on the way home from work. Again, absolutely horrible, but not that hard to believe. It happens, unfortunately, more than it should. And when the mother got home and found her husband beating Pat, apparently she tried to stop the father. He didn't take kindly to it. He threw her down the stairs to the basement where she bashed her head open on the cement floor and died in front of Pat. At which point Pat's father apparently raped him in an attempt to make him straight again. I believe this story up to the point about throwing the mother down the stairs. I wanted to believe it. I mean, I've known people who have had friends or family murdered before. I mean, I've got friends in the FBI and stuff. It's not that unheard of to me, but it was the fact that when I would try to look up information on this case, I could find nothing. You would think in a small town that he was in, if someone had raped their son and murdered their wife, it would have at least hit local news. And there was absolutely nothing about it, absolutely nothing with Pat's name or the name of his family member or the names of his family members on it. And I brought this to Bev, Anna, and Roy's attention, and they were like, and Anna was trying to defend him to the death, almost to like a suspicious point, like she was trying to cover her own ass. But Bev was like, he's your friend, you should believe him, you should trust him, it's really wrong of you to be suspecting someone who's so close to you of anything. Roy was the only one who really, really believed me when I said something was fishy. I talked to Roy in a private message. They were like, yeah, that sounds pretty fishy to me too. And they started trying to expose Pat as a catfish, and a really dangerous one. You can't tell people who are mentally ill stuff like that. That's horrible, and it's triggering, and it's just kind of evil to make something like that up, especially since he knew almost everyone in our group was LGBT in some way or another. So basically, Roy started grabbing pictures from Pat's Facebook account and reverse image searching, and a few of them showed up on this emo boy website. And Roy was like, look, I found his pictures on other sites. I couldn't find the other ones. They might be him for all I know, but these ones came up on like a fetish site or something. So I am taking that as he just grabbed them from there and said it was him. And I was like, that's horrible. Why would he do that and stuff? And Roy was like, I don't know. I'm still trying to figure it out before I like fully expose him for lying. Well, at one point during the investigation, I was talking to Anna, and we were talking about Pat and how strange some of all of this was to me again. And again, she was getting very defensive, and I was like, okay, I won't make him go on video chat if it's so traumatic for him, but I do want one other thing, and he should be able to deliver it. I want an audio clip of the two of you speaking. She couldn't really get around that, so she complied. She sent me an audio clip of the two of them singing a song together. And when I gave it to Roy, Roy very easily found out that sound editing software had been used to make Anna's voice sound deeper than it really was. And this is when Roy was like, you know what? I am pretty sure that Pat is Anna. And I was like, this is fucking horrible. Why would she do this to me? And Roy was like, I really have no idea, but now I have everything I need. So Roy posted this huge thing on Anna's wall, all the proof that Roy had found stating that Pat and Anna were the same person and that Anna was making everything up. And it got pretty bad. She had a huge following. They all came after us. Almost no one wanted to believe us. Bev full on stopped talking to me over it and was like accusing me of being a horrible person and everything for doing something like this. And I was like, I'm the horrible person? I'm the horrible person, someone who's suffering from a severe mental illness. At the time, my physical illness was also starting to manifest, and who's been lied to about a rape and a murder. And for no reason. Like, she couldn't give me a good reason why it had happened. So Anna and Bev both block me, but I think like a few months later, Anna wanted to come back into my life, and here comes fucking Pat. And this is where things started getting really dark and horrible. Pat I think as Anna's last-ditch effort to get me to believe in Pat, she decided something really severe, that apparently Pat couldn't live with everything that had happened to him anymore. So she had him text me that he'd tried to slice his wrists open that morning, but that it had not worked, and that as a result, he took a bunch of pills, that the cops were coming, but it was too late to do anything, and he was going to be dead very soon. Whether you know that's a catfish or not, you can imagine how traumatic it was, me being the only person texting this person when I was getting these messages. Anna posted something a couple hours later stating that Pat was dead and gone. And I wrote something in the comments about the fact that I'd been texting him and done all that I could, but he'd made up his mind. At which point, again, her posse of followers all attacked me. They said that it was my fault he was dead because I should have done more than I did. But let's face it, I knew he wasn't real. I couldn't get anyone to believe me when I said he wasn't real. I'm like, where's the obituary? Where's everything from the cops? How come when he lives in a small town, every time shit like this goes down, no one says anything about it on their news? No one thought about that, and they all just thought I was being a bastard about it. So once again, everyone blocks me, and the only person I have left is Roy. And I'm like, well, at least I have that. But this is where Roy started turning on me. Roy became a very jealous partner. I finally started making some friends in college, and I was really excited because they actually wanted to spend a lot of time with me and go out to the movies. Every time I was going to do something with them, I'd be like, Roy, I'm going to be gone for like 2.5 hours at the movies. Roy would say, fine. I would tell them, I'm going to be with my friend at the pier. There's no signal there. I don't know how long we'll be gone, so don't, wait up for me. I won't be able to catch up with you until I get back home. Again, Roy would be like, fine. But if I went more than an hour without messaging something to Roy, holy crap, the shitstorm I would be a part of. I would get paragraph-long messages that were full of obscenity, full of name-calling and nastiness, telling me that they were so upset they were going to cut themselves up because they didn't know where I was and they were so worried about me. And I would get absolutely terrified. I didn't know what to do. Literally every time I tried to do anything with friends or family that didn't involve Roy, and I was gone for more than an hour, I would get freaked out at and told that I was making them really depressed or suicidal or something because they couldn't get a hold of me. At one point, I was even with only my family at a water park. I'm at a water park. I can't use my phone. It will die. This was back in like the Nokia days still, when touchscreens were just becoming a thing. And Roy expected me still to be messaging all day and got pissed off when I didn't. And I started getting more and more and more depressed and feeling like I couldn't make anyone in my life happy. I'd already blown all my chances with all of my other friends online. I didn't have a lot of friends yet in real life. And now I felt like I was blowing it with Roy, even though obviously now looking back on it, Roy's a psycho. And Roy started telling me, it's not me when I freak out at you. And I was like, what are you talking about? And Roy was like, I'm really sorry about the fact that I write really nasty things to you, but it's not me. It's Eddie. Eddie is my second personality. I was a psych major. I know how DID works. If Roy really had DID, he wouldn't be so aware of it that even when he called me, video chatted with me, things that don't have a paper trail, things that most people with DID wouldn't remember. It was weird that he could recant all of it to me, and I brought that up. And again, he got really angry and was like, how dare you accuse me of lying? I'm like, because I know you're lying. You're just looking for an out for what a psycho you are when you get angry. And I was pissed. I was like, you can't keep blaming it on DID. That's a very serious disease a lot of people struggle with their entire lives and have to be committed for half the time. And you're just pretending you have it so you get out of trouble with me. That's not okay. There were so many signs pointing to the fact that Roy was full on lying about that. And every time I tried to bring it up, he just freaked out again. So eventually I just couldn't handle it anymore, and at that point in time, I still unfortunately had feelings for Roy, but I knew Roy wasn't good for me. So I was trying to end the relationship, and he seemed to want to end it too, but when I would start saying anything that even remotely looked like I was going to take off on him, he suddenly wrote a long status on a secondary account, not his personal Facebook account. It was a suicide letter. Surprise, surprise. Roy wrote a huge suicide letter and didn't speak to anyone, including me, for about a week. And this is when I started panicking and thinking, this might actually be real. Every time I tried to get him on Skype, he wouldn't show up. Nothing was working, and I even asked one of his friends about it, and he had a friend in on it. He had a friend telling me all about how he committed suicide, and I completely had a mental breakdown. I was a mess. I couldn't attend school anymore. I dropped all my college courses. I was being consoled regularly by one of my instructors. Thank goodness I had him. He's the best professor I've ever had in my life. And I couldn't eat. My anorexia started coming back because I was so depressed and I felt so out of control of my life. And I could barely even get out of bed. I felt like because I had caught Roy in a lie, maybe I hadn't confronted him in the right way about it. Maybe breaking up with him when he was that damaged wasn't a good idea. Maybe I was the reason he was dead. Can you imagine what that feels like? Giving your heart to somebody for the first time, only to have them basically say that because of you, they killed themselves. About 3 or 4 months later, I was starting to heal-ish. Not very well though, but I was at least spending time with my few friends in college again. And one of my friends found Roy's real Facebook account, the private one that I'd been blocked on right before the suicide note, and found that Roy was very much alive, very happy, very proud of himself for everything that he'd done, and was just living the good life, going to school and hanging out with friends like nothing had even happened. And cue mental breakdown number 2. I completely lost my shit. I couldn't believe someone that I had actually been in love with could do something like this to me, could actually convince me really well by even having real life friends tell me that he was gone. Who does that? So of course I saw him on and I was like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Who does something like this to someone who cares about them? And his whole excuse again, it was Eddie, it wasn't me. If that's the case, why did you wait months and have me seek you out instead of telling me, I'm really sorry, I had a bad DID day and he pretended that I was dead or some shit like that? Why did you let me believe it? On top of that, his other excuse was the fact that he apparently wanted to get out of the relationship and didn't know how. You call or you text that things aren't going the way that you thought they were anymore and that you think we should see other people. I don't know why that's so hard. Why is it so hard to do that? I don't get it. So yeah, after that, I had a few mutual online friends telling me that apparently he was spreading some rumors about about what a psycho I apparently am for how I called him out, and about the fact that I'm just like everyone else in his life, causing him depression and everything. Luckily, a small handful of them were not stupid and knew he was full of shit and stuck by me. But just like with Pat and Anna, most of them took off. I think maybe, hopefully, after hearing my story, you can understand better how people are easily catfished. If you are good natured and well meaning, you're very innocent, and you want to believe the best in people, and especially if you have a severe mental illness, you are easy prey for people on the internet. And the thing is, when I brought this to the attention of people in real life, they kind of wrote off as, well, you shouldn't have been talking to people on the internet in the first place. Listen, I've had people in my real life do things that are just as shitty as this. People in real life can do things the same way people online can. It's no different. The only difference is they can hide their face online. So, hopefully after hearing this story, A, you don't feel as bad about your own catfishing experiences, and B, if you haven't been catfished, maybe your heart's a little more open now and you can understand better why it happens to people and why they believe it when it happens. No one who gets catfished is stupid. No one who gets catfished is ignorant. They're just really desperate, lonely, and sad people who are usually very sick, and they're looking for love wherever they can. I know that's kind of a dismal note to leave a video on, but if you enjoyed this kind of thing, or you just like sitting down on my living room floor and talking to me, like and subscribe please, because it helps me out a lot. And check out firesphere.net, because my partner and I created a graphic novel together, and it's going to be one of a long series. Until next time, do something that makes you happy today, no matter what anyone else thinks about it, and I hope to see you all soon.